Okay, guys, welcome. So today we want to be talking about some of the new information that is coming up lately, and we want to be talking about the scientific aspect or the research that will be coming up. Instead of focusing on as other channels, they're focusing on other stuff. We're focusing on the science, the research. So we're gonna be talking. We're gonna start by playing this, from a reality check from Ross Cutler. Where he says that he interviewed Dr. Jim Sagals. So when I play a little bit, a little clip, and then when I continue the conversation. Okay, guys, now we're gonna be talking about what this new interview is talking about. Dr. Segal, scientist who was involved with Elizondo. So he was part of Elizondo's programs at one point. So he was involved with ATIP and the OSA program, similar to what Skinwalker Ranch is doing now, in the investigation nowadays. So all of this data is coming up to the same conclusion, that we're kind of facing something, as we see, UFO Twitter, there are different hypotheses. We have the interdimensional. We have the humans from the future hypothesis. We have the crop extraterrestrial hypothesis. We have the extraterrestrial hypothesis, which, in my opinion and the opinion of others, is the more likely due to the data points that we're seeing, from different sources. But then again, it's okay to start with a lot of hypotheses at the beginning of an investigation, but this investigation has been going on for a long time now. We've been, seeing these objects in the recent history, with since the beginning of the nuclear age. So we have been gathering data. So this is something that has been going on for a long time, 80 years or something. So, but at this point, we're, on the new research is kind of just solidifying we have been suspecting for so long, that this is something that is non-human, is hurting humans, and now we have the data to prove it. With Dr. Segal and other scientists in Skinwalker Ranch and the new Havana syndrome research released too, and the declassified documents from the AT program too, 1,500 pages. So different sources are pointing to the same direction, and not to mention, the accounts of alien abduction victims, that have been telling this story for a long time. They have been hurt, they have been taken against their will while they're sleeping. Their families are paralyzed. Sometimes they're kidnapped along with them. Their dogs are, paralyzed or, like molested too. And this is not just some daydream. Data shows, the AT program found out that there was some physical evidence of it. There's not just daydreaming or like nightmares. People wake up, but there's no physical evidence of what they're claiming. We're just showing that there's some evidence. There's some puncture marks, as we saw in the Calores, incident. It was mentioned by Elizondo in his book. So now we're getting a lot of data from different sources, from different times, like the Calores in 1975. I mean, that's different time, different place, different culture, but it always are pointing to the same direction, which is alien hypothesis is getting more, more support by the scientific findings, that we're facing something that is not from this planet, and it's probing, it's poking. In the case of Polaris, have killed human beings, and also document the case. We have medical records that show that that humans were killed in that instance, and we have David Grush too claiming too that humans have been killed by these UFOs or extraterrestrial. Or do you want to be more polite and more politically correct? You can say they are NHI, no human intelligence. But all the data is pointing out that they are not from human origin by itself. When you have CIA, NSA, chiefs, retired chiefs saying that they're detecting these objects, this craft coming out from above 80,000 feet, from outer space. Then they're not from origin when they're coming from outer space and going into outer space. If they were from terrestrial origin, why they have to leave our planet, in a rush, hiding, in stealth mode, why they have to, employ stealth mode to come into our planet, as we see in Skinwalker Ranch and other accounts, where these, orbs or flying objects are cloaking themselves, when they come, into a proximity to human populations. And for me, that shows that they are not from around here. They have to clothe themselves for 80 years. They have been here, at least this new wave have been here for 80 years in secret. As we have been heard from David Grush and other accounts, that they have made secret agreements with rough, illegal elements in our governments, especially the superpowers of our planet, the U.S., Russia, China. Yeah, they make. You have to ask yourself why a benevolent race have to make secret agreements with the not very best of us, humanity. It's secret. For me, that says a lot. That denounce intent. Why not go to the UN General Assembly? I mean, they have the power to show themselves. Nobody will stop them. This claim that they don't want to reveal themselves because humans don't allow them. Since when they have asked permission for humanity to be here? When they come into people's houses in the middle of the night, they don't ask for permission. They just come and take you. They use the technology to force themselves into humanity. So this claim that humans don't allow them to disclose themselves is just that doesn't hold up. you know, that doesn't hold up, you know, when you're talking about that. So now let's continue with the rest of our conversation. We're gonna go to my Twitter feed, make sure that I don't miss anything about the latest news. So let's begin again with yeah, that we only talk about the latest, you know, Ross Counter episode with Dr. Segal. He showed data and scientific evidence that, you know, that those people claiming to be abductees or have encountered with these extraterrestrial creatures, no NHI, if you want to be polite, uh, actually they're not crazy. There's some data that it shows that they have some encounter with these things. So now let's go ahead and go to the latest report, you know, that just came up like 2 days ago from the Havana syndrome, which if you have read some of the research from Dr. Segal and the research coming up from Skinwalker Ranch, is all the same. You know, this Havana syndrome and the health effects, you know, diseases being encountered by the research in Skinwalker Ranch is just the same, just another name for the Havana syndrome. If you read into Elizondo's book, he's talking about the same thing, you know. So they're connected. This Havana syndrome is just the same thing, but just in the civilian world, they call it Havana syndrome. But then again, if you ask Elizondo, or people say, oh, you know, he had encounters with orbs, so he recounts in his book. He was molested, you know, he was harassed by these orbs at his own home. Just as he started, you know, running ATIP and, you know, the UFO investigation in the Pentagon. So we're starting to see a pattern now, you know, like that, you know, if you are involved in any investigation regarding to the UFO, UAP investigation, or in support of it, or your family member is doing that, they follow home, you know, they follow those personnel home to try to dissuade them from following this investigation, you know, as Elizondo is recounting in his book. And we have heard stories from different sources, not just Elizondo, you know, we heard from other scientists, you know, for example, in the book, you know, Skinwalking in the Pentagon, which George Knapp was one of the co-authors, you know, they tell the same thing with the hitchhiker effect. You know, like when you start investigating, you know, following this UFO topic, you know, you start getting some pushback from this presence, you know, this, you know, UFO presence, city presence. They want you to dissuade you from continuing your investigation. And the Havana syndrome is just the civilian version of what the military and the intelligence community have been seen for a long time now. Once they start poking the bear, the hornet's nest, they start seeing, you know, this pushback from these, you know, microwave attacks, you know, gamma rays attacks, and all with the intent of, okay, go away, you know, like there's nothing to look here, you know, try to discourage you. If it doesn't work, well, then they go after your family, you know, as we have seen in another, you know, in the book Skinwalker in the Pentagon, or in Elizondo's book, you know, they come after your family if you continue. So recently, more than 300 Americans, you know, and children, included children, you know, they have been treated for the Havana syndrome, which is, you know, nerve damage. You start losing, you know, your balance. You know, you start having problems with memory. You start having problems with your eyes. Some people start developing autoimmune diseases, you know, because they've been exposed to this radiation, gamma radiation. As Doctor, you know, Dr. Jim was telling us, you know, this is not something you can go and buy, you know, on Home Depot. You know, it's something that requires advanced technology, you know, like an accelerometer, you know, like when you do nuclear particle, you know, physics investigation. So whoever is doing this is not as they claim the CIA, is trying to cover up it again. Again, the CIA pops up all the time. Something's going on. The CIA, that is faction within the CIA to be precise. This faction with the CIA pops up. In this investigation, the Air Force pops up always. Specifically, the Air Force Office of Special Investigation. The Men in Black. They start showing up. Like they start. Oh, there's nothing to see. We see with the Havana syndrome now. They or like no, like oh, you know what? This is the Russians. Don't worry about it. Let's just let it go. It's the Russians. And you can ask yourself, if it were the Russians with this kind of technology that they can reach personally within the White House grounds, why they haven't been able to use it against Zelensky to put an end to this war in Ukraine, to subdue Ukraine? Well, maybe because they don't have it. Their indication that they too they're suffering from those ailments. But then again, we see that Russia is not a democratic country. So, or as well as China. So whatever information is corrupt right away. That's why we don't hear from them. So it's very convenient for the CIA, to just blame it on Russia or China, like the drones. Oh, they're Chinese, they're Russian. Don't worry about it, But we haven't seen this, we haven't seen this since the World War II with the Foo Fighters, with 1950s in Vietnam, The Russians were that kind of, they were just, coming up from World War II, like they were peasants still, China and even worse. But then again, they start giving that this explanation that it was the Russians or it's the Chinese, which just another way to cover up, by the CIA. So we continue, and we wanna, and I posted on my Twitter link. I posted that article from a governmental site, that talks about the Havana syndrome and the cases. If you look at it, they're almost identical, to what they see in the intelligence community and the Department of Defense. No wonder, no wonder that, as you can see, that's one of the pie charts from this study released 2 days ago. No wonder that Navy, the Navy, branch of, investigation branch of the Navy, and the FBI went to Dr. Jim Segal to get one of his research because they're seeing the same problem with the personnel. They're seeing that the Havana syndrome is just another name of what they're facing, in the DOD and the federal, investigation personnel crew. So we start seeing, some correlation now. We start seeing parts of the jigsaw puzzle coming together. Like we start getting a clear picture of what's going on. Before it was just segmented, it was just compartmentalized. So let's look at this pie chart. You see that 30.5% of the intelligence community have been affected, 12% from federal, and then you see here that the DOD, accounts for another 35%. So this is not just hearsay of a tinfoil hat. This is hardcore science, real science that cannot be dismissed just as easily as it was done in the past 80 years. And now we go again. We see this. We see what scientists have been finding out. In the HE program, they commission a lot of research. We see that these people experiencing this Havana syndrome are just as the same as the people experiencing these attacks in the Skinwalker Ranch, in the HE program, in the other DOD, personnel that have investigated this topic and still investigating. So that they finding brain damage, like comparable to what you see in boxers, where they get hit repeatedly in the head. They have some microbleeds. They start seeing memory problems, like balance problem, visual disturbance. For me, this is not the work of a benevolent presence, And in Elizondo's book, it's very clear, this is not good for humanity, as some people might claim. We can always, okay, we see that a lot of people in the UFO Twitter and the UFO community as a whole, they always advocating for the benevolence of these races, that they're here to help us out, that they're here to give us free technology so they can shape us into a new era. Well, if that were the case, where is the data to support that? Where where do we see the UFOs in Africa where there's famines or some other suffering for human beings? Where do we see them? Like we don't see them cure cancer or cure the AIDS. We only see them in military installations, nuclear reactors. They are more interested in our capabilities, in our resistance capabilities to the present. We see them following, our military, most advanced nuclear ships, planes, where the nuclear weapons are stored, and it just happens all over the world, not just in China, Russia, or the U.S. It happens, as Elizondo's book is claiming that in another country that he didn't name, in another country that has nuclear capabilities too, those ores were there too. So this is a global phenomenon. This is not a U.S. fairy tale, that they just made up because they're bored. So this is something that we should pay attention to. And now we see, the data that is coming out. We see evidence in the magnetic field, in the infrared, in the spectrum, all of the spectrum fields. We're seeing that there's something going on. That we're now getting close to being able to detect these ships, these activities, these creatures, when they're trying to stop humanity from human researchers from actually going on and finding out what's going on. So let's continue. And Dr. Jim Segal, is giving us the tools to, if you suspect or if you want to have your own detection system, he gave us the rope, the roadmap how to assemble your own, because clearly the established the covert faction within the government is not willing to disclose this information. They say it's classified. Everything is classified. Even if you have a phone like an iPhone, you have it, and you make a recording with this, they will still classify because they say, it's against endangers national security. Clearly, it's not the technology that's classified per se. It's that they don't want us to know what they're being experiencing. What the UFO presence, they don't want us to know, because if not, why the technology from an iPhone is classified when they have some of the pilots have recorded that on their own phones. They had in the ear presence, not the technology itself. So here's a picture of the IRF, spectrum analyzer that's recommended by Dr. Segal and the researchers on the Sleepwalking Ranch. It will allow you to detect, the 1.6 frequency that is always accompanied this UFO presence. When you see the Academy relation to this, this frequency is detected. When you see human being targeted, this frequency is detected too. So this, when they unclog themselves, as some of the Italian researchers told Elizondo, they have to unclog themselves, in order to launch an attack, in order to deploy countermeasures so that to the humans probing, either their bases or their technology. They have to unclog themselves, the ships, and you detect this frequency. So yeah, this is the modular identified phenomenal alert system that Dr. Segal is kind of inviting us to assemble. Personally, I suggested like almost a year ago to one of my friends here in New York that now when you get involved in these disclosure efforts as a disclosure advocate, you might always be targeted as well. So you become a target. As we have seen with with the researchers in the Pentagon, Lisa Elizondo team, the skin watchers of the Pentagon book that he with ASAP and with the OSAP and ATIP, researchers, they were targeted. So don't be surprised if you like pushing for real disclosure and then you find yourself being targeted in some degree. That is if you're really pushing for disclosure though. Because if you are just simulating that you're looking for disclosure but you're not really doing it, well, you will not be targeted because you're not doing anything that endangers the concealment. But if you are doing something, then you might be targeted. You'll be harassed by trolls online. You'll be harassed by the Havana syndrome. And we moved to Skinwalker, the Skinwalker investigation. So we see that, we see that in the latest episode 26, season 5, that they come into a more clear conclusion what they're dealing with. According to Dr. Travis Taylor, he said that we're dealing with an intelligence of technological nature that responds to humans trying to drill into that underground chamber that they detected, which as long as when they get closer to this, chamber, this installation underground, they start getting jammed, they start getting affected, they start being harmed, as in the case of Thomas and another members of the team. They start getting, attacked by microwave, gamma radiation weapons. And this has been documented. Yes, I mean documented not just by video, but by by other devices that they're being targeted. We saw a case of one of the members, that he was hit with a weapon that affected his heart rhythm. He was given an arrhythmia that make him black out when they were poking around, Homestead 2 and the triangle. So we see that someone doesn't want to be revealed. That's someone doesn't want to be exposed. And I wonder why, if you are benevolent to humanity, why you are doing this to humans? Why don't you come out to the UN, General Assembly, just show themselves up? We're here to help you. But no, that's not the case. Humans are being targeted when they want to know what's going on, when they try to follow their footprints. We're being disabled as in the 60-minute interview when they talk about the Havana syndrome. One of the CIA officers say, like, my best agents are being disabled. When they're going after this investigation. Still, the CIA claims that it's Russia. Russia is doing all this disabling. Which I don't know if they have this capability. Why they don't disable? Like Lesinski, in Ukraine, if they have that kind of capability, or why don't just disable the critics, that they have to poison them? For me, it's just another way of trying to cover up, the ET presence. Well, it's the CIA, at least the faction that has a lot of power in the CIA, that dictates the curriculum in the CIA. Those are the one calling the shots. I'm sure most of the CIA agents they're patriotic, they're good people, but we have a mole in the CIA and the Air Force. We have a faction that it's a cancerous faction that has been covering up for 80 years. So those are the ones, calling the shots. Unfortunately, but they should be exposed. And Elizondo's book, it's gonna be doing that. He's in his book he's showing all the redactions. He's leaving there so people can see the redactions and who ordered those redactions. So in the index, he's gonna be pointing out who ordered those redactions, who's actually behind the cover up. So he's gonna start giving more information on who's really behind the cover up. So we don't have any more fantasies of, oh yeah, they're here to helping us, or they're good, they're humans from the future, they're crypto-terrestrials, there are ghosts and demons, this is just another small stream, another way of muddying the water, so we don't know what the heck is going on. But thankfully, the science is pointing the way. That's the reason we see a lot of pushback with the Nazca mummies, where they don't want to allow more research being done. The Peruvian government miraculously knows a lot of international law that is intimidating researchers and institutions around the world, so they don't touch the Nazca mummy. You know who's really behind that? The Nazca mummies have been trying to be covered up by the CIA. Really, recently in an interview, Josh Mantilla, like had a program where he mentioned that the discoverers of the Nazca mummies wanted to show one of the initial journalists, Mr. Choi, about all the bodies before anyone knew it. But then Mr. Choi, one of the Peruvian guys, show up with two military-looking guys, and then those guys guarding the Nazca mummies, which still guard them, they'd say like, no, something is fishy here. Who are these guys? I thought you were coming alone by yourself. But no, he was accompanied by these two military-looking guys. I mean, you can say, you're really smart. You can say, hey, they're CIA agents. They're here just to recover the bodies. But thankfully, those guys guarding the mummies, like, no, like, we don't trust you anymore. You something going wrong with you with this guy. So they didn't give access to the bodies. They sent them away. When those initial, those guarding the mummies at the beginning of 2016, 2017, say no to this guy, to Mr. Choi. He later on went, to Peruvian, TV and press, tell like, oh, this is a fake, because he couldn't get access to the bodies handed into this military-looking personnel. Which, if you are smart enough, you can say like the CIA. Like, this is not something that is unprecedented. We see what happened in Virginia. We see what happened in Colares. We see what happened, in Tehran. There's the CIA fingerprints all over the place. Not to mention other cases that we still not sure, but we can infer that the CIA and the U.S. Air Force are using our tax money to perpetuate a cover-up against the American people. As David Grush is telling us, there's a sophisticated campaign to this, to disinform the American people regarding the UFO phenomenon. And that's why we have so much resistance. They don't want, everything is connected now. It's coming into view, that we are facing something that, it's not just a mind virus or something made up. Yeah, and the other news is that we recently knew is that investigative journalist Jaime Maussan met with Congressman, Tim Burchett, yesterday morning. So now, we getting to see more collaboration, more involvement between Latin America disclosure, efforts and the U.S. disclosure efforts. Thankfully for, for a disclosure movement, they're coming together instead of fighting each other. As we see what's going on with the UFO Twitter, that personalities in the UFO Twitter, English personalities, English speaking personalities, they don't want to touch the Nazca mummies, because deep down they know that they're real, and that's the missing link. That will be one of the smoking guns, since the U.S. faction doesn't want to give up the bodies that they have recovered, in the UFO crashes. Now the Nazca mummies have to have to come in to fill that up, that past interactions of ET with humanity. So that's why this is trying to be prevented from reaching out into the U.S. Capitol, and in the English speaking world. because that will be the smoking gun evidence that, yeah, we have been visited by NHI, but which all the evidence is pointing out to extraterrestrial origin, as we see, with we see in the lack of any fossil records. If the dinosaurs 65 million years ago and more, 200, thousand million years ago, they left their fossil record and other animals, we still see the fossil record still, being found. Why wouldn't these creatures, why we don't see any fossil record of these creatures? Well, maybe because they're not from around here, they didn't spend hundreds of years living alongside, with humans, other than that, we'll see them, their skeletons, the fossil, records alongside humans or other primates, which is not the case. They just come and visit it. They didn't stay long term. Other than that, we'll see their bodies, laying around along humans, or other animals. So we should be scientific. We should just allow, some claims without any scientific evidence to cloud our judgment, to pull us into different directions. This is just part of the disinformation campaign. They're throwing a lot of theories, a lot of legends, just to pull our attention to different ways, so we don't follow the truth, which, now that the evidence is showing up, is more, it's more likely from we're facing an ET presence, but we can always, like, try to entertain ideas, but yeah, at the end of the day, we should just follow the data, man. We cannot pretend that it doesn't exist. We can just be like the US based, UFO Twitter community, that they just ignore the Nazca mummies when, when the evidence is showing they're so real, they're authentic, they once had life. They spend some time with humans, but we see that they couldn't keep up. They couldn't keep a long-term presence with humans because they die. And after that, we didn't see any fossil records of the continual habitation with humans. We didn't see the DNA footprint into later on human generations. So we see that they just appear, spend a little time with humans. They couldn't survive. Which in one of the interviews, Dr. Salce, the Navy surgeon, postulated that they could be because some disease, they couldn't handle the diseases in this planet, and that doesn't sound so far-fetched. Because I don't know about you, because I was born in this planet, I've been here for a long time, but still, I'm still being affected by COVID, the flu, and other diseases that, that still, affect us, and to think that these guys that come from another place that is not from Earth can be just as easily, rub elbows with us for a long term and not be affected, even after advanced technology. Well, that's a little naive, like, we have germs and diseases that pose a great hazard to anyone that is not from this planet. And even to us that we're from this planet, we still get fucked up, by the flu, The caveman was affected by the flu back then, and we still get affected by the flu. Then what would I assume that what we would assume that someone that is coming off outside our planet can just as easily just come and just habitate our planet as in the movies or as in Star Trek, where just wishful thinking. People, they don't understand how biology and pathology and all these diseases works. The Nazca mummy is a good example. That they try to establish some level of presence here, a colony with these hybrids interacting with the Nazca people, but then they couldn't keep up, and they die. We only see the remains in a very specific timeline, within the Nazca people, the Nazca period. They didn't appear in the fossil record. Then we saw a blip then they disappear again. They didn't reabsorb themselves into the human population like the Neanderthals did, We didn't see any evidence, no fossil records, no DNA, no genome portion of them surviving in the human population today. So it can lead us to conclude, along with the alien-looking hands with 3 fingers, the fingerprints that they don't match any living thing in our planet. So you see a lot of evidence stacking up against them being here from this planet, being native. Or they were just hiding in caves. Sure, but we will see them, their fossil records, the tectonic plates, they break, they rotate, they come up from the surface. We should see some, but there's none evidence of them prior to the Nazca period. Show us the evidence, show us that they were here before their appearance. That's because there's none. We should start pretending that the evidence that it's not leaning to a specific hypothesis, and it's leaning that they are not from this planet. More than that, we already been found a lot of 6 centimeter bodies lying around Australia, Asia, Africa, the Americas, but we only found them here in the Nazca region. For me, that's some evidence that they're not native to this planet. The DNA is not native to this planet either. From the unicellular organisms like amoebas, viruses, bacteria. They all of them are related to us, in the genetic, world. These guys, they're not related to us. And Maria, well, she looks humanoid, or she has some human DNA that was harvested, that was taken from a human from Asia, from a modern human from Asia. So it's not like the chicken and the egg, catch-22. Humans were here first, as we see by the evidence, and then someone harvested, probably through an abduction, as Dr. O'Connor tell us. Human was abducted, harvested, the DNA was harvested, and then it was mixed in the lab, by these beings to create Maria, which died because he couldn't keep up with our, biological hazards by the diseases, the environment, the harshness of our planet, as we can see in the toes and the feet that were burned by the desert. So they were failed experiments that didn't pan out, into the future. All and the evidence that's coming up, and it's going to be coming up, is going to just solidify that these are creatures from extraterrestrial origin. So let's continue with the news, that coming up, Yeah, and the latest is, that we have excerpt from Luis Elizondo's book that is telling us that, these sorts go after people that are doing the investigation, regarding UFOs, UAPs, ETs, to be precise. And I've heard that from many people, not just from Elizondo. I've heard from, Dr. Leskansky, the researchers from the OSAP and ATIP, as he recounts in his book, Skinwalkers on the Pentagon. They say, like, they follow you, like they call it a Hirschhachker effect. They follow you home, they harass you, they trying to intimidate you, they paralyze you in your sleep. They torment your family, they torment your pets. They give you cancer in the case of a scientist. It's recounted in the book Skinwalkers on the Pentagon, where one of the oars penetrated his right shoulder, and he felt like he was being burned with a hot knife. And then there's physical and there's medical evidence that he talks in the book. So I'm not just making this up. There's evidence in the book. Skinwalkers on the Pentagon. I want to post a link later on. Some of you will not be aware because you are new to this. Some of you might be aware, but they don't want to acknowledge it. With, hey, some of us will go through this negation phase. That we don't want to acknowledge what the data is showing. But at the end of the day, you have to acknowledge it too. We cannot ignore it. We cannot be like, don't look up. Kind of movie, like the movie from Netflix, Don't Look Up. So let's continue. So as I was telling you, that the research that the genetic research is not supporting any any descendants from the Nazca mummies into humans because it doesn't exist. The DNA was compared to all the libraries around the world of all the human, all the human populations, and Maria's DNA genome, the artificial genome, of her as a whole, didn't match any genomes of any human population. So that tells us right away, Maria didn't wasn't absorbed into the human population of our planet that we see now. So Maria was just a failed experiment. She got some human DNA stolen from a human DNA from Asia, modern human DNA, 5 primates from Africa, some unknown DNA, which if you have been following the data, you can extrapolate this of ETDNA. But then again, her genome as a whole cannot be found in any DNA of humans around the world. So that tells us right away. She died right away. Her DNA died right away. By and the other, when they and the other hybrid, the other humanoids too, is more or less gonna be more or less the same thing. They pterodactyl. The fingerprints are the same. Like they're non-human. Nothing similar to what we found on our planet. No fossil record of them. Any other primate that we find in our planet has 5 fingers. Whales have 5 fingers. Bats have 5 fingers. Appendages, maybe they're not visible, but they're appendages that you can trace them. Like, yeah, they come from the same ancestor. I still remember when I took a class in college when I was doing my biomedical studies. After spending 10 years in university, I took one class, college level, and we're doing some research on how we know, that we come from the same, that from the same ancestor. And I remember that they showed us that the bat, the whale, and other animals, they if you see a picture, they don't look anything like our fingers. Let's do our hand. You see the human hand, the bat wing, a whale fin. If you put them like, they don't look anything alike. But when you look with them, in the X-ray, under the microscope, when you see more advanced, they always saying that, oh yeah, they have 5 phalanges, 5 fingers, and they tell, oh yeah, that's because they come from the same, from the same ancestor. We see in this case of the Nazca mummies, they only have 3 fingers. Nothing on Earth has 3 fingers. There's no physical fossil record of any being in our planet going back to that time of the Jurassic era or the Triassic era of the dinosaurs. There's nothing, in the fossil record that tell us, oh yeah, there was an ancestor with 3 fingers. There's none evidence. If anything, we had found a long time ago, right? Like we have been finding, bones of dinosaurs for a long time, bones of sharks, at least the fossil records of turtles, like crocodiles, which are from the same era of the dinosaurs. But then again, we don't see any fossil evidence of this Nazca mummy. We don't see any animals with that same straight fingerprints. We don't see any DNA, any creatures from the past that have DNA similar to the Nazca mummies, from the animals from the future, like current animals or current human population that don't have anything like that too. So when we see that evidence, it should like, hey, it should like ring, tell like B. Oh yeah, these creatures are not from human origin. We can always pretend that we can always try to do gymnastics about, but this might be, maybe this, but hey, let's look at the hard evidence. I mean, And personally, I don't have any problem with you having hypotheses, but let's bring the data to support your hypothesis. All hypotheses are equally are the same at the beginning of an investigation, scientific investigation. But once the investigation start proceeding and all that data is coming up, you discard hypothesis that doesn't match the data, the empirical evidence that you're seeing. You know? At least what I used to do when I was, in university and doing research, when I was, doing some, physics research, you can always postulate hypotheses, but as the data start coming up, you start like discounting hypotheses. It's not matching with empirical evidence. The same thing with the elections. You can always you have candidates. Yeah, okay. But at the end of the day, when the initial result coming up, you start like getting rid of candidates that doesn't match up with the numbers that are coming up from the polls. The same thing with the evidence that we're seeing now. So hopefully now to finalize, we see that with a meeting, and the briefing that the journalist Jaime Maussan, gave to Congressman Tim Burchett, is gonna reverberate now in Congress in the UAP caucus now. Hopefully he's gonna pass that information to the caucus to get involved into this investigation and to pressure the Peruvian government to allow these mummies to leave the country and actually be tested, in international institutions, just to confirm, what we know already, that they're not from human origin, they're real, and more likely as the data is showing up more and more, on the accounts of Lisa Elizondo, Chris Mellon, David Grush, that they're not from, from our planet, they're from extraterrestrial origin. But then again, as one of the other guys in Twitter saying, let's hold on. Of course, let's hold on, but let's not be blind to what we're seeing already, where the data is coming up from different sources, different places. Once the data start coming up, we should start ready and get rid of those hypotheses that doesn't really match the empirical evidence. Let's not be afraid of being a little, like, hey, a little forward. Okay, to finalize, yeah, let's continue just analyze the data. Let's just let the science lead us to where they might lead us. As Dr. Michio Kaku says, we should go where the data goes, even if we have to go kicking and screaming. We live and die by the data. And as as a guy that studied physics and biomedical, sciences and did a lot of engineering, I can appreciate that. Let the data lead us to where it should lead us. Maybe it doesn't conform with our spiritual beliefs, with our expectations. But hey, the world is like that. Nature is like that. We just follow the data and just discard of hypothesis that is not really matching with empirical evidence, with the numbers, the data that is coming up. Just we should be able to say that, it might be a little politically incorrect, but that's the truth. So with that, we wrap it up, and let's just keep with the data. Let the data show the way. That's how we're gonna get up of this tunnel. Just follow the light. Let's follow the data that's gonna allow us to leave this rabbit hole that we have been thrown into. So with that, have a good day, and I will keep posting on my in my feed.